My name is Amber LaRock and I am a staff writer with Emergency Vets USA as well as a licensed veterinary technician. Our goal at Emergency Vets USA is to educate you on topics regarding your pet's health. So today we'll be discussing respiratory illnesses in dogs. There are many different types of respiratory illnesses our dogs can encounter throughout their lives. They can experience infectious illnesses, chronic respiratory conditions, you name it. So today we'll be discussing the basic details and just helping you better understand what type of respiratory illnesses our dogs can experience. So first, before we dive into the details, it's important to understand the difference between infectious respiratory illnesses and non-infectious respiratory illnesses. First, an infectious respiratory illness refers to a type of respiratory infection that a dog catches from another dog. This means that it can be a bacteria or virus that is spread through contact with contaminated surfaces or even through aerosolized particles that are spread through sneezing and coughing. A non-infectious respiratory disease, on the other hand, does not develop as a result of exposure to some form of infectious bacteria or virus. These types of respiratory illnesses develop as a result of genetic factors, even anatomical abnormalities, or exposure to different environmental triggers or lifestyle factors. The first type of respiratory illness that you should be aware of in dogs are viral respiratory infections. These infections just develop as a result of exposure to some form of virus. The most common viral respiratory illnesses that we see in dogs include canine distemper, canine influenza, canine respiratory coronavirus, and canine pneumovirus. The next respiratory illness on the list are bacterial respiratory infections. Similar to a viral infection, bacterial infections develop as a result of exposure to a bacteria. Some of the most common bacterial respiratory infections that we see in dogs include Bordetella bronchoseptica, which is better known as kennel cough. This one is extremely common. There are also Streptococcus bacterial infections, Pasteurella bacterial infections, and even infections that develop as a result of the Mycoplasma species. The next respiratory conditions on the list involve chronic respiratory infections. This means that a dog has developed a respiratory infection that will likely impact them for a significant period of time or even for the rest of their lives. This includes tracheal collapse, laryngeal paralysis, brachycephalic airway syndrome, or even chronic bronchitis. The next respiratory illness on the list is pneumonia. The term pneumonia just refers to inflammation within the lungs or even fluid or pus accumulation within the air sacs. Pneumonia itself, though, typically develops as a result of exposure to some form of bacterial or viral infection. And the last respiratory condition on the list that we'll discuss is lung cancer or lung tumors. While thankfully lung tumors are pretty rare in dogs, it's still a respiratory illness that should be considered. Cancerous lung tumors in dogs can originate in the lungs, or they can develop as a result of cancer spreading from one area to the body to the lungs. For a more in-depth review on different forms of respiratory illness in dogs and the symptoms of these respiratory illnesses, be sure to review the article that is attached to this video, but stay tuned to Emergency Vets USA for more topics on pet health.